and welcome to Thursday's edition of the Regional News. Thousands of Haitians took to the street in Port-au-Prince to express their anger against armed gangs that control nearly all of the capital and surrounding areas, and the government's failure to hold them off. Violent armed groups have united behind a coalition known as Vive Assan and forced over 1 million people from their homes, which has contributed to a freezing of the economy and fueled mass hunger. They are also accused of extortion, mass rapes, and killings. The transitional government, a rotating body of presidential council members appointed nearly a year ago alongside a long undermanned and underfunded UN-backed security mission, have done little to hold off the gang's advances. Residents filled the streets of Port-au-Prince carrying banners while some carried machetes and firearms. The protest began peacefully, but gunfire erupted later in the day, causing a panic that caused crowds to flee. Many critics allege the government's poor performance against the gang's advances is tied to state corruption and even collusion with the armed men and their financial backers. The government rejects these accusations, but Haitian authorities have a long history of ingrained corruption, and its judicial system has been paralyzed amid the violence. Brazil said it is assessing all potential responses to the United States' 10% tariffs on imports from Latin America's largest economy, while its Congress approved a bill outlining the framework for trade retaliation. The Brazilian government is evaluating all possible actions to ensure relation in bilateral trade, including resorting to the World Trade Organization in defense of legitimate national interest, the government said in a statement. Minutes earlier, Brazil's Congress approved a bill which still requires a ratification by President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva that establishes a legal framework for Brazil to respond to potential unilateral trade measures targeting its goods and services, including countermeasures such as tariffs. Venezuela's exports of crude oil and fuel fell 11.5% in March as Washington's imposition of secondary tariffs and the cancellation of key licenses to operate in the U.S.-sanctioned energy sector led to delays and cargo suspensions, according to ship tracking data and documents. U.S. President Donald Trump's administration last week announced a 25% tariff to buyers of Venezuelan crude and gas, which will begin this week, and notified foreign partners of state-run oil company PDVSA it would revoke the authorization it had granted to operate and export from the OPEC country. The measures follow the suspension of key license for U.S. Chevron to produce oil in Venezuela and export it to the United States, which last year was the second largest market for Venezuela's crude. The Treasury Department set May 27 as the deadline for the companies to wind down operations and exports. Regular buyers of Venezuelan crude in China and India have suspended some cargoes for late March and April, loading following the announcements. In total, 42 vessels departed Venezuelan waters in March, carrying 804,677 barrels per day of crude and fuel and 341,000 metric tons of oil byproducts and petrochemicals, according to data and internal PDVSA documents. The March average was 7.8% below exports in the same month of 2024 and the lowest since December. Thank you for watching. I am TIANA.